Hello, my name is Beverly, and today is Thursday, March 2nd, 2017. I want to share a vision that I had today. This vision was a closet door opened. I was in some sort of a building. A closet door opened. I don't know if I opened it or if it opened on its own, but nonetheless, it opened, and the guys inside, there were 5 men inside, and they looked up like this, like say you're in a closet, and they just looked like this. Like they saw the door open, they noticed me, and they're like, all of them were just like, and they just went right back to whatever they was just standing idle doing. And they were archaeologists. I'm saying about 5. That's about the number that was in there. They were all archaeologists, and they had on, I'm going to read it. The closet door opened, and it was full of about 5 archaeologists. They barely looked up when the door opened. They were standing, sitting, leaning, etc., in dusty clothes. Each had a push broom, and they were all as if waiting idle or locked up or paid off. And they were all smoking. They were just like maybe leaning on their broom. Just leaning on their broom. Somebody might have been sitting and had their broom like this and just smoking like. I opened the door, they're like. And then went back to what they were doing and just took another drag off the cigarette as if the door hadn't opened. They didn't care what was going on outside because their life or their job, whatever, was inside that closet. And they were supported or encouraged or just gathered up in there to do nothing. They were not to find anything. They were not to just be free to go and explore the record of human existence that is dropped in the dust of the earth. So they were all just idle, waiting, and they all had brooms. And that just represents them pushing what they would be doing with the broom, which is out in the dust and scraping the dust off of stuff. You know how you see them there. We've all seen what they do. So they were dressed like that. They were dusty. They're not dirty, just dusty. They would kind of remind you of Indiana Jones, but not so exciting and adventurous. Just some khakis, a shirt, dusty, smoking, just like leaning on their brooms, sitting on their laurels. So they were being kept there, representing the deliberate and systematic suppression of the truth of the archaeological record. So that was the vision that I had. So I used to have a lot of movies, and I hated commercials, so I would always buy movies, documentaries, television series, and anything on DVD that I thought I would be interested in. I would buy it and just watch it. That was probably my biggest pastime, and this was, over the last 10 years or so. So one time I was somewhere, and sometimes for work I would go to pretty remote places where for me, there would be nothing that I would be interested in doing. So this was my pastime. So one time I bought this series on the Grand Canyon. I think it was like The Wonders of the Earth or something like that. And one of the DVDs was about the Grand Canyon. And I watched it. And I never been to the Grand Canyon or really studied the Grand Canyon before, heard of it in school, whatever, but I never really looked at the way it was formed and the way it looked. So I got this DVD, and of course on this DVD, they're talking about billions of years and over millions and millions of years. Look what happened. But I'm sitting here looking at these canyon walls. And what my mind is seeing, I'm seeing like sediment. Not sedimentary rock that was formed over millions of years. I'm looking at what looks like what would happen if you had like mud layers. I'm looking like this thing, like this is something that you see like after it rains. This is some everyday stuff that we see. The way wet stuff settles out different materials and then they lay and stack up. And we're talking over vast areas, a layer that runs all the way through. I'm thinking, that layer, in order for that to be rock that formed from wind, something blowing there and then staying there in that exact spot long enough to get hard, and then another, it just doesn't make sense. It did not make any sense. And you know what I said? Me being a Christian, I said, me being a Christian and knowing the story of Noah's flood, I was like, nah, there's no way that canyon and so-called, sedimentary rock layers were formed by like something like what forms sand dunes. That doesn't make any sense. Dust is not going to stay in the same spot long enough to turn into rock. What made sense to me was, no, what happened was it was raining and raining and raining and raining, and everything turned into a giant mudslide, and all these layers settled out. The sea and the land became the same, and all these different layers got there, and they settled out quickly, and they dried out, and then they turned into rocks. So up until that time, I'd never given much thought to how the story that we're told, the story of the earth, the story of how the earth came into being, how the planets and life and all that stuff came to be on the earth, they fed us a story starting in, I don't even know whatever grade. And that story is at odds with what you heard in Sunday school, that God made the earth in 6 days. And he rested on the seventh day. He made the earth and everything that was in it in 6 days. If you read your Bible, you find out that all that's inside that big old book has happened in about 6,000 years. if you mark out the time from, day 6 when man was created and how long everybody lived, you get to about 6,000 years right now. So people having been taught theories of evolution, and that there's these eons and eons of time and the ice age and all this stuff is so long ago. I'm not going to go all into that, but I'm going to urge you to do some research. There's a channel called Truth Makes Free. It has excellent videos. They're all, 20 to 30 minutes long. I think there's one that's an hour long, but they're entertaining and informative. And if you're having trouble making what you know about the Bible and creation jive with the lies that you were taught in school, check out that channel, Truth Makes Free. And it will really show you all of the faulty science and the fantasy science, and as the Bible calls it, falsely so-called false science, pseudoscience, that they've used to turn sweet little children who believe in God and believe they were created creatures into little atheists who believe in nothing. So that was the dream that I had. So these archaeologists were kept in a closet. They were controlled, and they were not out doing free and independent study, exploration, publishing, and just finding whatever they find and putting it out there. Everything that you hear and that you're allowed to hear is going to fit the narrative. It's going to fit the story that they're telling. And the story that they're telling is that we are random, that we have no purpose. And since we have no purpose, there's no truth. And since there's no truth, everybody can do whatever they want. And if everyone does whatever they want, you're going to get lawlessness, perplexities, problems that can't be solved, things that seem to have no answers. Where did common sense go? It went out the window when you threw away the fact that there are truths in the world, that there is something that's called right and wrong. There are absolutes in the world, and you can't change what's wrong unless you know the truth. I'm just going to touch on one example because this has been in the forefront and on my mind today. Talked about it with a couple different people and some things I've seen today. The Black America, the fact that I believe it's something like now 80% of Americans of African descent that are born here in America are born into a single family home headed up by a woman. In other words, they're just not born into a family. They're born out of fornication. And all of the issues that people want to identify with Black communities, failure to achieve in school, the high dropout rates, crime, incarceration, more pregnancies out of wedlock, more young parents, fathers not being involved with their children, the mothers continuing to have more children with different fathers. Just, in other words, just going from one fornicating relationship to another and gathering children along the way. And being trapped in poverty because your responsibilities outweigh your resources. Now, white people aren't doing that to black people. You could sit and have another discussion about whatever you think white people are doing to black people, but that is not one of them. They are not taking you, single mother, and putting you with a man that you're not married to and forcing you two to have sex. That is called sin, and each person is responsible for their own personal sin. So if we're not able to talk about absolutes, like the fact that you were absolutely created, you're a created being, you have a purpose, you have an identity, and you have responsibility as a person. You were created with those three things: a purpose, identity, and responsibility. And all these things are all tied up. That's who you are. You're a man or a woman. Your purpose is to live by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. Your responsibility is to do that with all that you have inside of you. And so from the fact, first you start out, you're a boy or a girl. Then from a boy or a girl, you're a son or a daughter. Your responsibility is to learn well. And then from being a son or a daughter, you become a wife or a husband. And then the Bible has certain duties that go along with what you are. If you're a woman, you have a responsibility as an absolute. Absolutely, you have to look like a woman. You have to conduct yourself like a woman. And then if you're a man, you have to conduct yourself like a man. You get into a relationship and you become one flesh with someone by joining yourself in a covenant called marriage, which no one is forced to do. But if you choose to do that, then you're allowed to partake in another operation of humanity, which is reproduction. You're going to bring forth more people. Then you have responsibility. Your responsibility is to teach those people who they are, what their purpose is, and to train them to be responsible people. That happened for thousands of years on the earth. More or less imperfectly. But now, all of that has come unraveled. I'm not saying it was so tight before, but people now, they're having trouble identifying who they are. They're having trouble. They want gender fluidity, which there's no such thing. It is a lie. It is not the truth. It is absolutely not the truth. They don't believe in God, so they don't have a purpose. Or they may believe in a false God, so they don't know their purpose, which can only come from the true and living God, Jesus Christ. They don't know or want the responsibilities that come along with the fact that we're a created being. You have a responsibility to know yourself, to know this God, and to know what he commanded, and to do those things. So back to the African American community, since all this is forgotten, since there's no knowledge of God, no desire for God, and actively pushing God away, you don't have any absolutes. People don't want you to tell them any absolutes. They'd rather just wander around in this quandary, not knowing what to do, because they don't want you to tell them that anything that they're doing is wrong. If you don't have any children, and you're male or female, and you're not married, and you're not familiar with what your purpose, responsibility, and identity is according to the Bible, don't have any children. If you don't know that it is necessary to join up in a family unit, to bind yourself forever to another person as long as you both live, that's what it takes to procreate. That's what it takes to prevent all the foolishness that we have right now. The Bible's the only answer. So, archaeology is hiding things like the fact that Noah's flood actually took place. The fact that the earth is young, that it is actually 6,000 years old. That there's no history that's older than that. The fact that they have no way of measuring millions of years, let alone telling you that something happened millions of years ago. If you think about it, you only believe it because someone told it to you when you were really young. And you took it in and you believe it, and you laugh and scoff at the idea of anything else. The Bible is the literal history, description. If you want a psychology book, that's it. Don't look at Freud, he's wrong. Read your Bible. If you want to know how the human heart works, if you want to see an example of every type of human being, they're in that Bible. You want to know what makes people's brains tick, that Bible is your education. They've convinced us that someone has to go through their educational process and be certified by their things and be called an expert, and we can't trust our common sense. You can't trust your eyes. You can't trust your own reasoning ability. You can't. Now, should you take your own thoughts and ability to reason and let that override the Bible? Absolutely not. But up against another human being, and they come and they tell you, well, it's this, and it's just really complicated. Just take my word for it. I'm an expert. Don't go for that. Don't go for that. They want to convince you that the world is so complicated, you can't possibly understand it without them. You need us. You'll starve to death without us. The, ISIS is going to come and cut you up in a bunch of little pieces and, rape your daughters and put you in a burqa if you don't listen to us. The sky is going to fall. So trust me with everything you have. And God is saying, trust him with everything you have, with everything you are. The Bible is a record of human history. It's the record of the human heart. And not only is it the record of what has been, it's the record also of what is to come. It is the A to Z. Jesus is the Word. The Word is Jesus. So just know, according to my vision, archaeology is more the science of misinforming you. about the history of the world and the record of the objects that are left behind and what they speak. If these archaeologists were just turned loose without any agenda, just like the heavens are telling of God and His glory, the earth is also speaking of God and His glory. Noah's Ark is somewhere. All these ancient cities that are in the Bible, they're somewhere. Check out that channel, Truth Makes Free. You'll enjoy it, and it'll just let you know. You don't have to trust science, falsely so-called. These people have an agenda. They're hiding God from you. And they started doing it when you're very young. Because none of the junk that they're trying to work, none of it can affect you if you believe in the Word of God. Because He came to set the captives free. So they can't capture you. They can't enslave you. You'll be God's free man if you live by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. They can't do the things that they do. They can't make you afraid to die, because you know that this life is, as someone put it, the childhood of our eternity. It's just like the time that you spent in the womb. It's negligible compared to the time that we've spent here actually living our lives, and you won't even remember it. This life is just like that compared to how long that you're going to exist. So this is just, this is like your time just being a fetus. It doesn't matter. You won't remember it. It's not all that you have. It's not all that there is. And people are just like, you only live once. Go for the gusto. Once you die, you're dead. So you got to have everything now. You better enjoy all you can. It's a lie. Live for God in this short, teeny little space of time, and then you'll get to enjoy forever. God bless.